So if you're here to see part 2, I hope you've enjoyed part 1 of the episode with Delna Avari, and I hope it gave you a lot of thick information to absorb. And I hope that some of you were Googling in some of the words that she was saying, because I think there was so much knowledge packed into that one episode. That was about the side on large businesses. This one is now about going from 0 to 1. So there's fantastic stories in this episode about scaling, about entrepreneurship, about founders at an early stage, and going, taking the business, getting clarity on the business, identifying specific problems for the business, and how really you can work with a top level consultant or a coach, or I don't know what's the right word to put it, but within our ecosystems, there are very, very few quality resources that you can put yourself into as you go on your growth journey. So I think Delna's Business 360 is one of them, and I'm so excited to be able to talk about Business 360 on this episode with Delna Avari. Okay, so we have part 2 of the episode with Delna Avari. So Delna, thank you for this second part. The first part we've touched upon the large businesses, and for anybody who saw that episode, if you haven't seen the episode, you should, because there is a crash course in sales acceleration, there's a crash course in product development, and there's a crash course in supply chain. You may not get, you get a lot of different words which you can Google, and I guarantee you will come out with, a lot richer than with your understanding than you did before you watched that episode. So if you haven't, I would highly recommend for you to watch it.
Thank you.
But now, we're on part 2, and you mentioned in the first episode also that you were running 2 very diverse businesses.
Right.
So the first part, which is your consulting practices for the large companies, you spoke about the Tatas, Mahindras, and the listed companies, 3 to 10,000 crore listed companies that you're doing a lot of work with, and this work within pockets, and then identifying work within those pockets, fixing those pockets, and then going across. And what's interesting is that you spoke about the fact that there might not be a homogeneous issue per se, because they're listed companies, they're doing well, but within pockets they want to fix, and then that's what you're kind of going and doing. Right. This is other part of your practice, which is the Business 360 practice that you run, which is a completely different practice.
Yeah.
So I think, and there I think it's safe to say that there might be a homogeneous fix, may not be a homogeneous issue, but a homogeneous transformation that you're able to bring about.
Absolutely.
So I'd love to understand a bit about the Business 360 practice that you run.
So Business 360 actually came about almost organically, because while I was doing a lot of the large consulting projects, all of which are customized, they tend to be solution for the company, but around a framework that I have developed, right? What was also happening is that I used to see a lot of noise in the startup ecosystem. And because of my desire to keep helping and training and all of that, I would land up counseling people or helping people or coaching people in my free time. And then I realized that there is a gap in the market where young founders are not getting, when I say young founders or young enterprises, I don't mean the age of the person, I mean the age of the enterprise that they have founded or running, right? And that is a very critical stage at which you need to get the right help and insights. At that stage, if you structure your business correctly, right, and you design your business correctly, you make far fewer mistakes. Mistakes are going to happen. You need to be agile. You need to fix things. But if you get the right insights at that stage, it helps you to design your business correctly. And that's when I started doing a lot more of the scaling work for the people, right? So I just happened one day I was talking and I was explaining to someone the difference between growth and scaling. And I said how a growth profitable business works and how a scaling business works is inherently different. You've got to design it differently, right?
So can I stop you to just ask that?
Okay.
How does, it's interesting because it's the first time I'm listening to something like this saying that a growth business works a certain way and a scaling business works a certain way.
No, so, there are different definitions of growth and scaling and all of that, and they tend to get used interchangeably, right? But what I'm trying to explain to people is that I have an aspiration to build a business, okay? Now that business, when I'm designing a business which is likely to be a good, growing at a certain percentage, making a certain amount of money, are called growth profitable businesses. I encourage people to build growth profitable, sustainable businesses, not an exit business, right? So growth profitable, sustainable business works in one way. Scaling inherently has a different characteristic. Scaling needs you to reach a point at which your cost will start going up incrementally and your revenue will start going up exponentially. That's the scaling business, right? Which means my cost curve starts flattening, my revenue curve starts going up exponentially, and your profits, therefore, your margins go up. Typically, it's easier to do in a technology business, right? Because initial cost is very high, initial cost of acquisition is very high, then the incremental cost starts going, the cost curve changes, right? What does a good scaling business need? It needs repeatability. It needs modularity. So when you create modularity in the business, that's what will repeat. Customization is almost the enemy in a way, right? The more you customize means you're going back to building.
Right.
So every time you go back to so if you've got a demand and you've got to add more people, or you've got to change the product, or you've got to change the service, automatically you'll end up actually not becoming a scaling business.
Right.
So when you start thinking of your business as a scaling business, you start building in your modularity. You build your repeatability of services as well. You structure your cost in a manner. You structure your offerings in a manner. You learn to say no.
Can every category of business have a scaling business, or is it limited to certain categories?
I have found every industry is capable of having scaling businesses. So every industry can have it. The behavior then changes.
Got it.
So typically, I have a lot of people who reach out who are in passion businesses, right? I call them passion businesses because it started as a passion or a hobby. I am now trying to make money out of it, and I've got into a business. And what they then land up doing is some of them start thinking about raising funds and exits and VCs, and then they are not always structured for that. Because the minute you're looking at external funding and you will want that and you're trying to get to those revenues, you need to think in a certain way, right? So typically what happens, those are the ones you have to kind of guide and make them understand what is it that you're really building. And most of the time, those businesses actually have to be moved to understand what a profitable, growth, sustainable business is so that they can get out of the hamster wheel. Now, the hamster wheel is in two things. One is where you're chasing revenue, okay, and you are delivering the project and you're losing, you've not had enough time to do business development. So there's no, you're on a bit of a roller coaster on your revenue. So that's one kind of hamster. The other is the mindset where you are trying to be something that you are inherently not designed to be. And so that's the stage at which I found that I was landing up giving a lot of talks at accelerators, incubators. It's all a word of mouth thing. So the more I would talk, I'd get invited, or I'd get invited to some of the IIMs because some of my ex-colleagues would be doing courses out there. So they'd call me and I'd take a course. I'd be taking something on Industry 4.0, but suddenly I'm talking about scaling, right? So it would just kind of happen. And so I realized that this is something that's a need. So Business 360 is actually designed as a platform. Okay, and platforms inherently means demand and supply connect, right? So for me here, it's not just about Delna. Here I actually have a panel of experts who I send to various things again, right? And there are people who are very comfortable working with the startup ecosystem and the MSME ecosystem. So I even get companies who will be out of Daman, a certain 5-6 crores, doesn't know what to do next, right? They have some thoughts that are going in their minds. They will also reach out, right? So it's the startup, fancy consumer businesses, but also these hard, old businesses which have been small and second generation wants to do something with it and doesn't know what to do, right? So we help them connect with the right help. So depending on what help you need, we kind of give that in, right? We have modular programs. We have boot camps. So again, the modularity is then Business 360. It's not like the consulting practice, which is very customized, right? Here you have modularity in our structure, but the content itself changes because it's dependent on your business, right? Or it's dependent on the cohort. So we do community boot camps. We try to ensure that the community is similar, because so that the community can learn from each other, as well as I can keep that modularity that is inherent.
So you have a community cohort of, like, let's say businesses who are in manufacturing.
Yes.
And all of them together in a community boot camp.
Sure. I haven't done too many of the manufacturing side of it. I have to be honest, because there isn't much coming in from that ecosystem. Bulk of what's coming in is coming in from the B2C side of it, right? Right from food, health, wellness, sports, education, lot of that, right? Or marketing, new age automotive companies. A lot of the automotive is bound to come in because of my own experience being in where it has been. So clean technology. A lot of those kind of companies are coming in. And typically we try to put them in a similar cohort. Right? So if they are passion businesses, hobby businesses, 1-2 people in the team, we'll try to put that community together. If somebody is, I've had people who are social enterprises, right? Sometimes it's not possible to put them with other people because that entire solutioning changes. So I encourage them to take some of my other catalyst programs, which are much shorter and which are for the individual company, right? So it's only solving for you. But if there are things that the community can learn from, then I encourage people to
So how
take
does
the
a company who is in that phase reach out to you guys, or like, you know?
Honestly, everything in my life has been word of mouth, right? And I'm a big believer in that. So right now, we are just very organically growing.
But is there like a website they can go to?
Oh, yeah,
Business360.
business-360.in.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
It's an interesting one because when I started doing this, being somebody who's done a lot of brand work, picking a generic and converting into a brand was important for me, right? Because I am solving your 360 problem, whether it's the content, whether it's the forum, whether it's the member community, whether it's the kind of experts that you have. Eventually, the customized programs, the curated programs, then the standard programs, you can take whatever you want, right? So we are solving 360 for you. So even if something like your legal problems, you don't know how to structure your company, I'll connect you to somebody who will do it for you, right? And why that is important is because they're ratified by me. So nobody makes it to the panel unless I have approved it, at this stage. Eventually that will change.
Just like the Avengers, selected by, you know, I mean, you put together this set of
Thank
Avengers.
You. That's an interesting one. I'm sure my nephews will be happy with that reference.
Yeah, but like literally that's what it is, right? Like for business, and you know, so just coming back to this growth business versus scaling business.
It always is fascinating. People get very taken in by that point.
Yeah,
so
like it's interesting because you know, I mean, I'm assuming that even growth businesses will find a lot of value in the work that you're doing.
Oh, no,
right?
we have a lot more of growth businesses. As a matter of fact, you see this swashbuckling chap who is the real startup hero in this country has led to a lot of people getting very, very disillusioned when they finally get into business.
Yeah, so I run a growth business. I'm very happy running a growth business.
No, you are actually probably will convert to a scaling business very soon, right? The way you are at that tipping point, I would say. I've been watching your company for a while now, right? You have that, so you can choose to. I said in every industry you have it. So you can choose to be that, right? So the day you choose to be that, structurally things will have to start changing in the way you look at things. Right now, you're looking at it in a nice, strong, growing, profitable, sustainable business. But the day you decide to change something, some of your services might move into a scaling practice, right? Not your core business might not, right? It's possible to have that. I myself am doing that, right? So, but sorry, I lost the train.
No, so I'm saying that, you know, a lot of growth businesses would be coming to you, and you said that that's you know,
that is actually the bulk.
Yeah,
that's actually the bulk of people who will end up coming in because they're confused. They don't know what to do. Invariably, somebody who's starting a business has their own problems, right? My own noise in my head, my voice is saying, can I do it? Will I be successful, etc. But then they have a lot of ecosystem noise. And the ecosystem noise comes from my own ecosystem where somebody will say in the family that, why are you doing this? You have a great corporate job. Why are you doing this? Or it's a second generation saying, oh, why are you not joining the family business? Why do you want to start something of your own? So there is a lot of that ecosystem noise. But the other ecosystem noise is what I just mentioned about the way they are celebrated, right? It's always about some deal that has been cracked and some exit that has been done, and somehow you are not allowing people to naturally build out strong businesses, because somewhere I'm not saying you are not allowing, but I'm saying the noise in a person's head doesn't allow them to, right? Or they don't know where to get the right advice. And so that's what we do, right? We've done, everyone who's working with me is very committed to ensuring that you help the founder. So we are that panel for the founder in a way. So a lot of my work is only with the founder, right? It's very clearly talking to the founder and being that person they can speak to and trust.
Right.
And they know that with someone like me, I'm not going to give them anything. I will not BS. I will not tell you nice things because it will not serve you, it will not serve me, right? Also, the fact is very rarely does it really have to serve me. I ensure that in this side of the business, the person who's investing feels the stretch in investing, right? It's not matching who I am. That's my other business. Here, the person investing has to feel the stretch. They have to be committed.
Got it.
Right.
Got it. So a lot of, from what I understand, I mean, if you're a founder watching this, and maybe I can ask you a little bit about this next, but what I'm sensing right now is, if you're a founder watching this, you often, it's the 5 people that you're surrounded by, which are, which are how your brain will expand. And that is what Business 360 kind of
Yes,
is.
it does, right.
And then puts you within that ecosystem to
Correct.
accelerate your growth.
Correct.
And it's done at a fairly competitive price point, or a compelling price point. I wouldn't say competitive.
I wouldn't know what the price point is, frankly. I mean, very often I get asked that, right? So what I tend to do is, why I say that is because very few people are actually doing this.
No,
right?
sorry, but the reason I put that point across is because you come with a lot of credibility and experience.
I mean it. People get very scared when they look at the other side of the business and say, is it something that we can even afford? Or you sound like very intimidating. So it's a big challenge, which is why I put myself behind the brand name, and I said it's a lot of other people who are out there as well who are helping out, right? The important, you're very right. It's about providing. Very often a person comes to me, and I actually started doing this with small groups, and it now run batches of 100, 110, right? Where people are coming in for what we call a self-leadership. It's about me, my career, my growth, my aspirations.
Yeah.
And what I would continuously hear is that, I want to change my network, I want to change my ecosystem noise, but I don't know how. Right? So if I might tell somebody that you find those 5 people who are going to inspire you and help you, let me tell you that you yourself, you're super busy running your own business, right? Now you're a great role model to a lot of these people, but do you have the time? So a lot of the people who can be great role models are very, very busy in their businesses. So that's where somewhere I'm putting in a panel of people who can do that for a founder, right? Because what typically happens as a founder is, where will I find it? The ones who are doing it are themselves growing their own business. Otherwise, I don't have a real good connect, because I feel some people are very dated. Also, there is a lot of judgment that comes in with a lot of people helping, right? I mean, judgment is very inherent in the way people talk. Prejudices come through. So if somebody is giving advice, there's invariably a bit of a prejudice, right? But because I am actually trained myself to not care, because when you do first level planning or any insighting, you don't care about your own feelings.
Got it.
Right? So, I mean, I might have designed and helped in automotive, but I actually like to walk. And I'm an awful driver, right? So it doesn't matter. For me, it was always about, what is that customer saying? What does the customer want, right? So because you have that ability, a lot of the founders find it very helpful.
Got it.
Because there's no judgment. There is no gyan, there's no gyan. It's just, this is practical, this is what you do, this is what we've seen successfully. We have 6 examples of this, we have 7 examples of that, we have 10 examples of that.
Understood.
It's not about,
So for a founder, it's you're kind of working with, to some extent, some of them are going to be interacting with you.
Yes, not all, but some.
Working with somebody who has seen the largest businesses, so has the understanding of real scale, but also has the understanding of like feet to the ground and know the consumer, and then come back to that and kind of build that practice. And there's a whole array of experts who are, I mean, like, those people you surround your brain with.
Correct.
Who will spark your business in the right direction.
Absolutely.
Of course, there are some of them also very hard skill, like you said, the legal or the finance.
It can be you want to do your brand identity, you want to make your brand book, you don't know who to go to. So it can be as simple as that. It can be somebody being a CA to you, somebody helping you do your GST filing.
Right.
I mean, it can be anything, right?
Yeah.
Business is not as simple as, it's not always about some scaling or
so
about
it's a
brand.
singular qualified quality marketplace.
Yeah, it's a quality marketplace
where
in a
you
way.
come in and you kind of supercharge your business to grow.
Correct.
That's
you tell us what you want and we'll provide it for you.
Got it.
If we don't have it, I'll ratify and I'll find somebody. But if there's one thing I have, it's a network, and that's what was bothering me, right? I have a network, and I mean, I'm not able to help people with it. So I then started kind of structuring it in that manner, saying, how can my network be activated? And my network has my value system, right? My value system is to help. So you need a network, especially in Business 360, that is designed to help. If it's all about cold hard cash, you will not be able to help that founder who's going through enough challenges of their own. They don't need somebody trying to, put that additional pressure of an exit or something like that. That is a different set of people. We are not those, right? So we are somewhere in the middle. We are not VCs, we are not education institutes. We are people who've done business And so we know what you're going through, so we'll help you get to the next part with some. You'll still make mistakes, but at least we'll reduce the mistakes you can make because we know it.
And you felt like there was a gap in the market with something like this.
It's been over 300 businesses now that I've helped in the last 4.5 years. So I realized, and that was never advertised. So I mean, where did they all land up from, right? It would be a word of mouth, it would be somewhere an accelerator, be a session. So I include those numbers as well, but they'd always be small 10, 12 business cohorts. And it would just multiply. And if I took one with an accelerator, they'd always call me for the next batch and the next batch and the next batch. Or my self-leadership ones, which I'm not including in 300 businesses, it's been now what? 800, 900 people.
Amazing.
Because the batches are of 100, there were batches of 25, then became batch of 50, then became a batch of 100, right? And I have a structured questionnaire. So because this is modular, right? Or everyone gets a structured questionnaire. So you've got to do your self-reflection. And then you go through the session, right? So in a community, 100 people, you can't engage with everyone. So that's why I just scan, because I do pattern, I mean, I'm anyway a pattern recognition person. I'll just scan and I'll see what the cohort is missing.
Got it.
Invariably, it's the same thing.
Okay. And my last question is, I think, so thanks for firstly taking us through all of the facets. So I think, through this conversation has been distilled and crystallized. And I think hopefully people who view this, founders who are in the need for the kind of things that you're providing will find
Thank
that,
you.
the
the serious
detail.
ones. If
of course.
Hard work. So I say stay out of it.
Yeah, I mean,
because
you
I'm
already,
very, very
even
clear.
the way you speak about the swashbuckling and the glamour, I think,
No.
I think, I mean,
my ecosystem is, because the network is very highly protected, right? Yeah. Because it's the people who are there, you have to earn your place there, right? If you're coming in for fun, don't. If you're lost, yes.
Yeah.
If you're serious, lost, need help, take it.
Yeah.
But if you're just doing this, give me one introduction to so and so and get me fundraise and all that, that's not my job.
Yeah, and I don't know if my word holds any weight in that, but I just I do know that, for example, this hard work, merit-based kind of structure that you are advocating, I mean, so I've had some opportunity to work with you on that. So I think that, it is that, and ultimately that is what leads to sustainable growth.
Absolutely.
Which has some sense of lasting, and of course everything is impermanent in that sense, but
I'm not saying
this
that
is the right way to build.
I'm not saying that. See, you might take an exit out from your business because it's needed for the business, right? But if you're planning it for money, that's the problem. That's what I'm referring to. But yes, every business has a certain trajectory and a certain life. It's what's motivating you, right? It's if you are motivated by creating an impact or by serving or your customer, right? And making money. So I don't do philanthropy with my business. I do philanthropy with my profits. I've trained people 1,000,000 times to understand that you make the money from your business, ethically make money, then you want to buy a private jet or you want to give it back to society, that's your call, right? So don't do philanthropy for business. So don't get me wrong, I'm not talking about that. But it's what is motivating you. Are you motivated by impact or are you motivated by...
Got it.
Yeah, something else.
And so my final question is this, that, maybe if you could take us through one of your businesses without naming them, and just talk through the journey, like the 360 journey for that business.
Oh, wow.
In that sense.
So it's always difficult when somebody asks me one or two, because now there's been quite a few and some I'm very proud of, right? So I'll try and cover it in a different way. So there has been a business where they just walked in and the founder walked in and was lost, not lost about what he wanted to do, but unhappy with wherever he was and he wanted to get into something else. He didn't know who to, he didn't even think that talking to me was going to help him. Let's be clear there, right? He thought it's just going to be a conversation, he's out. We sat together and we designed his business on a paper, and I hope he's kept that paper because it was really nice, because we pulled it out of a printer and we drew out his entire business. And we are right now, we've just entered phase 3 of his business. He scaled up to $1 million without fund, profitable, extremely very, very, very well run, right? But he did the hard work. So at every stage he did the hard work and his team did the hard work. And initially it was all about designing the business. Then it became about creating modularity, because he would become the bottleneck. So how do you create modularity? Phase 2 was creating modularity. Phase 3 is about expansion after the modularity has been created, because now you've hit a certain revenue point and a profit point at which you've got to take off to the next level, right? Intervention at each stage changed. Another kind of
And this is a business you worked with through
from
all
the-
of these
so
phases?
this is from the time the person came in a pair of shorts, so to ask for advice.
So typically a founder, when they're working with you, and I'm just trying to get into the
Hmm.
mechanics so that, because these might be the FAQs, if you
Yeah.
may. So like, if a founder is working with you, then they work with you through a period, like do they work with you, they see you
So okay,
once
so
a
this
month
one,
or?
no, so this one has been with me through their life, right? There is another one who was an interesting one. He existed, doing well, had good revenue, good profit, had to crack the big daddy of the industry as a client. So he came to me for what? To help him crack the big daddy of the client. I mean, that
For a
client.
specific task.
Specific task, right? So we went through his business, so a few sessions, practice.
Got it.
Go do your pitch, came back, all the stages till he cracked the business.
Understood.
Right? And so that was a few months. And then what happened is he came back almost a year later for the next round of stuff that he was doing on his product.
Got it.
So that was to crack a customer. This is to crack the product. Again, now all these are all really, really high revenue, high profit businesses from where they started with me, right? So they've started with 0 or with a few lakhs and now are in the multi crores, right? Or another one came to me where he said, I have to raise funds. He's not asking me to help him raise funds. He's asking me how to manage the investor because he doesn't come from that background. So with him, I've helped him actually structure it from how do you go and do your pitch.
Understood.
Made him practice the pitch. And he said I was way tougher than that investor, right?
Yeah.
Because he got the money. And not only he got the money, he got follow-on 2 rounds as well. And every time he had to go for a follow-on, he practiced with me. But he was not there with me otherwise.
Got it.
Right? So that's how business is. So that's why I keep saying it's what do you need? The partner you need at that point is for a particular thing. Someone for a product, someone for a client, someone for investor, someone through the journey right from designing to the next phase. To be honest with those people now, I don't spend much time. So every time they are at a phase stage, we kind of meet up. We spend a few sessions deep diving into what to do for next phase. Then they go and do it. I don't even see them.
Understood.
Right?
Okay.
Except on Instagram.
For those 3 minutes.
For those 3 minutes where I'm liking all my clients.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, I think that brings me to the end of
Thank you.
this
Thanks
one.
a
I think
lot.
it's been
Thank you.
fascinating to see how, two sides of the businesses, the really large businesses and then the growth and scale
Yeah, the
businesses.
tension is there in that brand.
Yeah, and I mean, it must be fun being you. So thank you for sharing all of
Thanks a
that.
lot. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you for having me. It was
Thank
really
you.
kind. Thank you.
Awesome.